at the bottom with our prelim notables. I'm going with Cedric Dumas over Dennis Tuilui-Lin.
Didn't happen, right?
Renat Fakhtardinov over Nicholas Dalby. Nasrat Haqparast over Jared Gordon. Shara Bullet Magomedov over Joyton Luderbach.
Different opponent.
I'm torn on this next one, but I'm gonna edge towards Johnny Walker over Volkan Oezdemir. I'm going with Muhammad Naimov over Felipe Lima.
I don't think that happened.
No, I'm gonna go. Tough one. I'm gonna go with D-Rod over Kelvin Gastelum. Sergey Pavlovich, first round knockout over Alexander Volkov, and Rob Whittaker over Ikram Alexarov.
So that was like what, 4-3?
Yeah, winning record for the week, but yeah, lost it on Pavlovich and Johnny Walker and Muhammad Naimov. He got finished by Felipe Lima. Pretty sure. It ended up being on the prelims, that one. Oh, and Diego.
Oh, right.
Sorry, Daniel Rodriguez as well. So yeah, I dropped a couple last week. It is what it is. All right, Tom.
Cedric Dumas over Dennis Tuilui-Lin. I'm going with Renat Fakhtardinov over Nicholas Dalby, Nasrat Haqparast over Jared Gordon, and Shara Magomedov over Joyton Luderbach. Going with Volkan Oezdemir over Johnny Walker, Muhammad Naimov over Felipe Lima, Kevin Gastelum over Daniel Rodriguez, Sergey Pavlovich over Alexander Volkov by first or second round knockout, and Robert Whittaker.
So I came in at 6-2.
Yeah,
it was
solid week still.
Yeah, I think what was it that came in for me? It was the Oezdemir pick for me, and we had one other thing that we picked against each other on. What'd you say, D-Rod?
Kelvin and D-Rod, yeah.
Yeah.
I even felt good after the episode, after Kelvin missed weight and stuff like that. Like I still felt good about D-Rod going into that, but it happens. You drop one, it is what it is. But yeah, that Volkov Sergey Pavlovich fight was something, right? Alex, he did what we said what he could potentially do, right? Like just keep at range and just pick apart Sergey, which he did. I mean, you saw Sergey after that fight; he was a bloody mess. Yeah, pissed off too. And these guys used to be friends, apparently.
Interesting.
The UFC just breaking up more friendships as the years go on, right? This is like the Russian Colby and George. That's what it seems to be like.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, two buddies, and now they'll never talk again. And if they do, it'll just be out of spite and maybe running up on each other at like a Russian oligarch restaurant or something.
I still think as time goes on, I think Sergey, like if they ever do a rematch, like I think I'm going to give it to Sergey probably too. Probably with maybe a little bit of rage, and obviously with the age difference here, Volkov obviously has less longevity. So I think Sergey Pavlovich is a little bit newer to the scene also, so a little bit potentially more room to grow. So we'll see. But that being said, let's get into UFC 303.
Yes, sir.
It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I am Keith, joined as always by my amigo Tom. Tom, ¿qué pasa?
Bien, muy bien. UFC 303 is upon us, although it's not the fighters that we thought it was going to be. We will hopefully get that at a later date. Alex Pereira stepping in on short notice, also with broken toes, allegedly, but broken toes, and on a media tour, stepping in on 2 weeks' notice or so to fight Jiri Prochazka. I don't know much about how long these guys are training, but I think there's a lot of things that go into this, and it's going to be interesting to talk about it with you. And it's really interesting what the UFC did to take a very light card in terms of talent because it's for McGregor, and what they did in order to make it be able to sell with, obviously, even though Pereira is probably their second biggest guy behind McGregor, it's still going to be a significant step down in terms of name. So interesting to see what they do here. And hopefully I saw I'm not going to give away my pick, but I did see a take that was saying that, the UFC is potentially setting up Alex Pereira to get absolutely annihilated because he's coming in at short notice with broken toes, wasn't training, and he's going to have a bunch of celebrities who are sitting front row paying McGregor level prices just for him to get knocked out because he was on short notice. And you have Procházka coming in, with potentially better healed shoulder. So we'll see how real that is. I'm, again, not giving anything away in terms of my pick, but what do you think of that?
I think, first and foremost, the UFC should be paying these guys millions of dollars after what they did to save the MSG card when John Jones and Stipe couldn't fight. And now you have them step. It's just the star power that Alex Pereira and Procházka have at this point to step in for these big fights and still sell out. It's still going to be a packed event. It won't be, the McGregor. Sure, everybody has their tickets and stuff. I'm sure some people are looking to resell, people that might have been flying there just to see McGregor fight. Kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but you got to give these guys all the credit for stepping in on short notice. Exactly. I just hope that they are being compensated heavily. I'm sure they are at this point. The two of them are company men, and it's going to be a battle. I'm so excited. Poatan versus the Last Samurai. Pumped.
That's pretty sick.
So pumped, dude. But yeah, we got a whole stacked card to talk about leading into that. Just want to remind all the kind people at home, please like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at pickinfightstom, at pickinkeith, and at _pickinwinners on Twitter, X and Instagram. And you can check us out on Spotify for the full audio and video. It looks pretty cool when you pop up our Nate Diaz logo on your CarPlay in the car with the Spotify. I think that looks pretty neat. Not that I listen to our own podcast all the time, but I have pulled it up to be like, hey, look at that. I'm on Spotify. So, tell your friends. We really appreciate that. And liking, commenting, and subscribing is free. Just want to mention that. It's not a Patreon just yet, and it really helps us out. All you guys in the chat right now, hit us up. Let us know what you think of our comments. Let us know what you think of our picks. All right. Starting with our prelim notables. Okay, opening up the main card. You got one for us. How about it, Tom? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Ricky Simone to get this one done. Vinicius Oliveira is coming in off of a flying knee knockout 3 months ago over Bernardo Sapage, as you see there. Coming in off the Contender Series via left hook. Before that, fighting in UAE Warriors. Fighting, 7-3, 6-0, 12-2. He's definitely a decent prospect coming in, 28 years old, 5'9", pretty tall for the bantamweight division. You're coming in against Ricky Simone, who is just very experienced, and even though he's on a 2-fight losing streak, you got to remember Ricky Simone is really strong at grappling. Fought against Song Yadong, got knocked out there, came back 6 months later. Fought a close decision with Mario Batista. I think Ricky Simone is going to be really hungry at this point at 31. He needs to get this one back. He's a -225 favorite. I like that for him. I like his ability to grapple. And I like his ability to trade one standing up. And I think he's, has a really good defense. I'm not too worried about him getting knocked out against Vinicius Oliveira. So I'm going with Ricky Simone to get this one done, even at -225. What do you think?
I like the pick. I'm not super confident in it just because Ricky Simone has dropped a couple, but that does actually make me feel good about him because this is a guy that was floating towards the upper echelon of the bantamweight, starting to make his way up there. You fight Song Yadong, you're entering like that. He needs a win, 2-fight losing streak. I like him to snap back and end that L streak. So I'm going with Ricky Simone as well. You got another one for us?
Yeah, I'm going to be going with Martin Buday to get it done over Andrei Arlovski. This is going to sound like I'm bashing Andrei Arlovski. I don't mean for it to sound that way, but he is 45 years old. You see it right there. Against a 32-year-old Martin Buday, even though he is coming off of a loss against Shamil Gaziev by knockout 6 months ago, I don't think that necessarily Andrei Arlovski is going to have the knockout power to put Martin Buday away, even if he has a slight chin issue. A -280 favorite, I still like it here. I mean, 3 losses to Marcos Rogério de Lima by submission finish. Then he got knocked out by Dontel Mays, who has some knockouts on his record, but not against high quality competition. So that kind of tells you where Andrei Arlovski is at this point. And then Waldo Cortez Acosta not even being able to pick up a decision win against him. I think Josh Parisian, Jay Collier, Lucas Brzeski, getting wins over those guys, even though those aren't super high quality opponents, I think it says that Martin Buday can get it done against, lower quality competition. And unfortunately, I think that's where Andrei Arlovski is at right now. So what do you think, Keith? I'm going with Martin Buday to get this one done.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Logic is sound. I agree with the pick because I think Andrei Arlovski has dropped fights to those guys a couple of years ago, like Jay Collier and the Luca Brzeski type guys, even if he hasn't. I think he definitely has a loss to Jay Collier in the past. It's just not the Andrei Arlovski of old. Sure, he's 45. You give him a lot of credit. Old athletes, it's really cool to see him do it. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see him do much of anything on Saturday. So, yeah, I'm right there with you on Martin Buday. Andre's chin is finally failing him at 45 years old. Next up, we got Peyton Talbot versus Giannis. I can't say these names. Giannis Gamori. Yeah, Peyton Talbot minus 1,600. You don't even need to know the other guy's name because I think Peyton Talbot's just going to go out there and finish him in one round. We saw what he did against Cameron Simon. And I think Cameron Simon is no slouch at all. He's a great South African fighter. Same team as Dricus du Plessis. And we saw what Peyton Talbot did to him. There was that one knee that he threw against Cameron Simon that was like very akin to the knee against Sean O'Malley against Chito Vera, where you hear that noise and it scares you a little bit. So I'm going with Peyton Talbot this week by murder. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he is head and shoulders better than Giannis Gamori. Also, something is Giannis Gamori, a featherweight, going up to bantamweight here, or going down. You wonder what that would do in order to, do for somebody's chin. Cardio, sure, he should have a size, but Peyton Talbot's still going to end up probably being bigger than him. Just not a lot looking good for Giannis Gamori. So minus 1,600 favorite, probably not anything you can do betting wise, but Peyton Talbot by knockout.
Yeah, parlay piece maybe, or first round KO, KO sub, double chance, whatever. Next up, we got Charles Jourdain versus Jean Silva. I'm going with the slight favorite here, but not a favorite with the Tapology voters. Charles Jourdain, Air Jourdain. This is a guy that, I don't know. There's some of these guys in the UFC that, you root for, you want them to win. And Charles Jourdain is like that. But I also think that he has the skill set to get it done against Jean Silva. He's got really great striking, good defensive grappling. We saw him pull that off against Kron Gracie, right? As Kron Gracie is butt scooting towards him, he just had to stand there, and it was fine. So great defensive jiu-jitsu against Kron Gracie. But, yeah, I like Charles Jourdain. I think he's got the personality to really be a star. French-Canadian, and he's got a great kickboxing game. And, Jean Silva has a win over Weston Wilson or something. I don't know, no name. And then you look at Charles Jourdain's resume, and he's losing fights, he's winning fights, and he's doing it against some of the better guys in this tier of the lightweight division. I'm sorry, the featherweight division. That last drop to long arm Sean Woodson, that's an okay one because Sean Woodson's got a hard style to deal with. I don't think that John Silva's got the level of boxing and stand up that that Sean Woodson has. And I think Charles Jourdain's going to put on a little bit of a show this week. And I find it interesting people are doubting him because he's shown us a lot so far, and John Silva not so much. So I'm going with Charles Air Jourdain. What do you think?
Again, right there with you. I think Gene Silva, even though he's 5-0 over his last 5, you look at the quality competition, 5-2 outside of the UFC, 4-0, 9-9, 11-0 to get into the UFC by decision. And then, you have Weston Wilson, 16-8. Wilson not going on to accomplish too much in the UFC career. So far, Charles Jourdain, he's got, 2-3 over his last 5. But you talk about decision, majority decision over Shane Burgos, resulting in a loss for him. Same thing with Nathaniel Wood, unanimous decision, has 2 wins, Kron Gracie, Ricardo Ramos, 1 by finish, and then a split decision by Sean Woodson. And a fight that, honestly, I had counted him out of. I didn't think he was going to, have a too much of a chance. And like I said, he went in there and he puts him on Sean Woodson and did better than I thought he was going to do. So I think he has ability to finish on the ground. I think he is decently defensive, at least enough in this case against Gian Silva. to get it done. He's going to be the bigger guy here. So he's going to have less of an issue, I think, compared to against Sean Woodson. So minus 130, he's a slight favorite, but I like his time in the UFC. I like his skill set. I think he's a quick striker, and I think he's got a little bit of ground game too. Should Gene Silva find himself there? So I like Charles Jourdain to get this one done. And looking at Tapology, you can see he's still going to be probably the bigger guy in there, at least taller. Most of Tapology, 54%, is actually on Silva. A lot of people think it's going to go to decision. I think it's going to be back and forth, going to be a fun fight, but I'm just going to be siding with Jourdain to get this one done.
Yeah, I like it. And his Instagram stories always make me laugh. Next up, Cub Swanson versus Andre Fili. I am leaning towards Cubby. And, I don't know. I feel like this fight was meant to happen, or it has happened in the past. But, despite Cub being 40 and Andre Fili being 34, sometimes Andre Fili has nights where he looks like he's 44. And Cub Swanson is always battling father time. He still looks really good for 40 years old. Obviously not championship quality good, or as good as he was once upon a time. But I think Cub Swanson has the ability to put hands on Andre Fili's chin. And Andre Fili's chin has been scaring me lately. He lost his last fight by KO. I'm going to go with Cub Swanson just because of the grittiness, the willingness to stand in the pocket and trade, and the fact that, he's been finished too, but I don't think Andre Fili's going to finish him. And I think Cub Swanson has the better hand. It's going to be a great fight. It's going to be awesome. This is going to be two vets that are really just swinging at each other, trying to bang, put on a fun show. And I think Cub Swanson is going to come out on top. But I could see why you would say otherwise. I'm waiting for you to do so. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, so Andre Fili is fast, and Cub Swanson is not as fast as he used to be, and Cub Swanson definitely doesn't have as much power as he used to. He did look really good against Hakeem Dawodu, but he's fighting father time here, 40 versus 34. And I know Andre Fili, he doesn't have as good of a record in his last 5 here. But, you take the loss against Dan Ige where he got knocked out. I don't think Cub Swanson is going to have, anywhere near the power or the boxing at this point in his career, not even the speed, and probably to a certain degree, not even the cardio of a Dan Ige to present the same type of challenges to Andre Fili. He's got the win over Lucas Almeida by knockout, and he's got a split decision against Bill Algeo, a guy who just will not go away. So I think Cub Swanson exhibits that will not go away. We've seen Andre Fili get into tough fights and go back and forth. He does have the Nathaniel Will unanimous decision loss, but again, back and forth there, and then got knocked out by Joe Anderson Brito. This is a guy, Andre Fili, who kind of will not go away in terms of his career, and he always comes back, and he always gets one back. And both of these guys are win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. But in a battle of win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, I'm going to take the faster guy, the guy who has more relevant knockouts. I think this is going to be totally a stand-up battle. If it does decide to go to the ground, we've seen Andre Fili have, adeptness there. And not that Cub Swanson's bad on the ground. I think this is going to be a stand-up battle. It's going to be stand and bang. It's going to be fun. I'm going with the younger guy, the faster guy, and the guy who's got more recent knockouts. I think Cub's chin is not fantastic, and I don't think that that's something that's going to sustain much longer. As he gets even further on the other side of 40, he's going to be the smaller guy here too, which I also don't like for him. And finally, against Darren Elkins, getting knocked out by Darren Elkins, that's not a great look at this point.
No, he knocked him out.
Oh, he knocked out Darren Elkins, right? But who does? Who doesn't? Like, Darren Elkins, is not hasn't won much as of late. Let's just leave it at that.
He's the danger. He's the danger, bro. You always got to watch out for Darren Elkins. But
is he the one who needs to watch out because he throws himself in danger?
Yeah. The only thing to keep mind of though is that Cub Swanson is still he got finished by Giga Chikadze, but that's an okay loss. Like Giga is pretty sick.
It's 2 years ago. He's 37 at that point.
Okay. He's been smart. He's
almost 41.
Yeah, he's been smart. He hasn't been super active. It's pretty intelligent when you're that old to manage your fighting.
Sure. But I think you're going to be a much different person at 37 than you are at almost 41.
Maybe. Time will tell. And then the other thing to watch out for too is Cub Swanson is really letting his personality show the past couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Like when it got announced that Alex Pereira was fighting in the main event, the big post from ESPN was like, Alex Pereira is going to have to cut 25 pounds in 2 weeks, and Cub Swanson was the top comment. It was like, yeah, so is every other fighter on this card. Like, Cub Swanson's really letting the personality show. He's been talking a lot of smack on social media, so I respect it. Next up, Joe Pyfer versus Marc-Andre Barriault, and I am going with Marc-Andre here, actually, at a plus 210. Everyone that knows me knows I like Joe Pyfer quite a bit, but I don't think this is a very conducive to a win matchup for Joe Pyfer. Coming off a loss against Jack Hermanson, and we saw the way that Jack played with him the last time around. He kind of like danced outside, throwing those body kicks, really just making it difficult for Joe Pyfer to touch it all. And we saw what Marc-Andre Barriault did with Chris Curtis. Sure, he took the loss in that fight. Marc-Andre was supposed to be a guy that's supposed to be a good dance partner in the past, and it got everybody, including us, excited for that Chris Curtis fight, thinking it was going to be absolute fireworks. But Marc-Andre showed the same way that Jack Hermanson showed against Chris Curtis and against Joe Pyfer, that these big power punchers in this division, especially a guy like Joe Pyfer, that like that's all he relies on. And, you know, these middleweights, they move around a little bit better. You can get away with dancing on the outside and just throwing some body kicks, throwing some leg kicks, and maybe a jab every now and then. And if Marc-Andre does not let Joe Pyfer touch him, I think he's going to win this fight, because Joe Pyfer is not he's technical, but he broke his arm on the Contender Series posting a takedown. So like he makes a lot of like mistakes that lose in the fight. And against Jack Hermanson in a 5-round fight to lose by decision, I'm pretty sure that was a 5-round main event. That's not a great look. And then you have a guy like Marc-Andre who shows that he can implement the same game plan. He used the Jack Hermanson game plan against previous opponent Chris Curtis. He's going to use the same thing against Joe Pyfer this week. And I don't think you're going to see Joe Pyfer put his lights out, because he's just not going to want to engage with him like that. So I think you're going to see Marc-Andre actually pull out a decision W, especially as the fight gets a little bit later and Joe Pyfer starts to lose a little bit of gas, because he's so used to that early finish that Marc-Andre, you know, he's going to like start to show some stuff at the end. We saw it against Jack Hermanson, and I think it's going to be a very similar story this week. So I'm going with Marc-Andre over Joe Pyfer. What do you think? Hey, you're muted.
Damn it. Yeah, I mean, I'm going the other way. I'm going with Joe Pyfer here. I think Joe Pyfer is a guy who's definitely showed his power to us before, and he's a guy that in his last fight against Jack Hermanson, it was a 5-round fight, and Jack Hermanson did kind of run away from him for a long time, have to drain his energy. Being that it's more of a 3-round fight, I think you're going to see Joe Pyfer who's much more willing to engage, much more willing to go forward, and much less willing to just have to chase a guy around the ring. Also, you know, you're talking about somebody who is relatively new to the UFC. He's 27 years old. You know, he's had, you know, only 4 fights in the actual UFC, one on the Contender Series, knocked out everyone up until that point. I think Jack Hermanson showed Joe Pyfer something that he hadn't necessarily seen before or had to contend with before. And being that it was 4 months ago, I think in those 4 months, Joe Pyfer probably worked on cutting off the cage and, you know, not letting a guy get away from him. Because when you are a power guy, it is important that you can dictate where the fight takes place and, you know, have that ring generalship. And I think that's what Joe Pyfer's probably been working on. That's what he's going to be able to get better at. I think he still has a ton of upside here. And I think Marc-Andre Barriault as a guy who, you know, lost that split decision against Chris Curtis for running around the ring. He was typically a guy who would go in there and throw, right? Beat Julian Marquez, has a split decision or a unanimous decision rather over Eric Anders, and another win over Jordan Wright via submission. Obviously, he's not going to get that submission win over Joe Pyfer. He has had submission losses before, so I think just Joe Pyfer has a lot of different ways to get it done. So I'm going to go with Joe Pyfer to get it done over Marc-Andre Barriault on this one.
I love being a contrarian, because seeing that 9% coming in on Marc-Andre, the plus 210 odds, probably going to move up more as this fight goes along. I kind of feel good about Marc-Andre this week. You know, I like that dog money. All right, what do we got next? Oh, I know what we got next, the main card, right?
Yep, we are finally on to the main card. I feel like we wanted to do prelim notables, and then we just did every fight on the prelims with the exception of like 3. So
yeah, except for Michelle Karate Hottie Waterson Gomez and Julian Robertson and Carlos Hernandez and Ray Sayura. So other than that, we got you covered for the prelims.
Yes, sir.
Opening the main card, we got Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page. I'm going Michael Venom Page all the way this week. Plus, what is that? Plus 180. Ooh, I love that line for MVP. Ian Garry's talking a lot of smack about how he likes to, throw his hands out there and do a lot of stuff, and how that's not going to get him. That's not going to confuse him. I think it will. It confuses everybody. Ian Machado Garry, we've seen him be a little bit tentative in the past with strikers like this. And I think Michael Venom Page is – I don't know if he's going to finish Ian Garry, but he's got such a hard style to contend with. If Kevin Holland couldn't touch MVP and is going to his corner between rounds, I can't find him. I don't think Ian Garry's going to have much success either. Because what is Ian Garry going to do? He's going to rush in and try and throw bombs at Michael Venom Page. That's not going to work out well for him. Two hot guys, one podcast. Oh, my goodness. Nice comment. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, very true. So Michael Venom Page, he's ready for the counter-striking. He's going to be ready to fire something back at Ian Garry. Ian Garry's going to rush in there, I think. Or Ian Garry's going to try and play the range game with him. And I don't think that that's going to work for him either, because Michael Venom Page is impeccable at range. The only way that Ian Garry beats MVP this week is, okay, if he catches him, or if it's in a boxing ring, hands only, because then you incorporate, not only do you have, MVP's hands working for him, but he's going to have his feet working for him. If Ian Garry goes for a takedown, we've seen him get submissions off of his back and throw elbows off of his back. His game plan is so complete. It's so hard to figure out. And I don't think Ian Garry is going to have an answer for anything that MVP does this week. So I'm going with Michael Venom Page. What do you think?
Yeah, we finally agree now. I'm going with Michael Venom Page here, MVP. I think Ian Garry's, he's kind of dismissive of Michael Venom Page, and he's also, MVP. Yeah, Kevin Holland's definitely going to beat him, and was kind of dismissive there. So I think it's kind of maybe peeking behind the curtain a little bit of the mindset behind Ian Garry. I think Venom Page is a guy who, Ian Garry said something at his press conference where he was like, it was something to the effect of somebody was telling Michael Venom Page to be defensive. Oh, Garry said that he's not going to take chances or something. And Michael Venom Page is like, I fight with my hands down. I always take chances. Like, they tell me to put my hands up all the time. They beg me to put my hands up. I put my hands down. Are you kidding me? What do you mean? So I think Ian Garry is just kind of throwing out those stock like sayings to try to get under an opponent's skin, or saying what he thinks he needs to say, or something crafted by his white girlfriend. So I think MVP is the guy who's going to get it done. I think he's much more dynamic. I think he knows how to move around the cage. I think Kevin Holland presents a much different, and honestly, in some ways, a harder challenge than Ian Garry. I think Ian Garry's a guy who's going to go out there and use low leg kicks and, a couple jabs. He throws a hook every now and again. He mixes it up. He'll push you up against the cage. I think he's just an annoying fighter, whereas Michael Venom Page is annoying, but in a much more creative way, and in a way that I think is going to throw Ian Garry off. I think Michael Page is a lot quicker, even at 37. He's a lot quicker than Ian Garry. I think Ian Garry is just sniffing his own farts too much. So I'm MVP all day.
There's a world in which fight for the belt in the welterweight division. I do see that potentially happening, even at 37 years old. Because if he beats Ian Garry, who's next? Another contender in the welterweight division, and then another one, and maybe, we're there. We're talking maybe MVP is fighting Leon Edwards or whoever's holding the belt at that time. Because he doesn't look to be slowing down anytime soon. Next up, we got Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. And I'm going to go with MBS, Mayra Bueno Silva. Sure, she lost her last one, championship fight to Raquel Pennington, Rocky. Girl went on to be a champ. You got to give it to her. Like Raquel Pennington, she's holding the belt right now, I'm pretty sure, right? I think Macy Chiasson is great competition. She's put on some great wins in her last 5 fights. She's 3-2. Mayra Bueno Silva, though, she's just a finisher. We saw what she's done to girls like Holly Holm in the past. Contend with her striking game. She's contended with really good submission and jiu-jitsu games in the past. Macy Chiasson, also very technical. Like I'm consistently impressed by her. I always think that she's going to lose. I also think she's going to lose this week, though. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is probably going to take her down, pound her out, maybe lock something up, choke her out, get an arm. Yeah, I'm probably thinking, Mayra Bueno Silva maybe by submission or just to control the fight, be on top for the majority of it and win by decision. But I would like to see her get a finish, just being that this is on the main card, and we know that MBS is a finisher. So I'm going to go with Mayra Bueno Silva. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you, although I am a little hesitant because, we see the finish 3 months ago of Pickin by Macy Chiasson. You have the loss to Rita Aldana, also a submission to Raquel Pennington, and she has the split decision win over Norma Dumont, who I do have a very high, at least I used to have a high value on, and I thought she was going places in the UFC bantamweight division, women's bantamweight. So, I mean, listen, I think Mayra Bueno Silva is a little bit stronger on the ground and has a little bit more of a forceful striking concept, and I think also she has a little bit more of a power punches. But if Macy Chiasson can stay around the ring and use her length, I mean, you look at a 72-inch reach, 5'11" versus 5'6", shoot the box. She's going to be aggressive coming in. That's MBS. If Macy Chiasson is able to use length and move around kind of like a Stephen Wonderboy, then it gives her an opportunity. But it's a 3-round fight. MBS, I think, is going to rush in. She's going to be more active. And even if it does go to the judges' decisions, I think she's going to be the one who's throwing more punches. So at least from the perspective of the judges, will look like she deserves the win. So I'm going to go with MBS here. I'm actually kind of interested in this fight because I think, you're going to have a fighter who wants to throw. And that's at least somewhat of a change of pace.
Yeah, and I don't think that, I think Macy Chiasson is going to be looking for counters and stuff. I just don't think she's going to find them. And if she does, Mayra Bueno Silva is a hard girl to put out. Next up, we got Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze, and I am leaning Roman Dolidze here, despite the fact that he's taking this on short notice, because Anthony Smith is also taking this fight on short notice. Quick recap. Was supposed to be Jamal Hill versus Khalil Rountree. And then Khalil Rountree submitted that he had tainted supplements, so he's suspended for a couple months. Carlos Ulberg steps in, and then Alex Pereira is announced as the main event, and Jamal Hill decided all that talk about next time I see him went out the window, and he stepped off the card as well. I'm convinced that it was because he did not want to run into Alex. Another friend here, Joe Alioto. What's up, bro? On paper, Anthony Smith beats Dolidze, then beats Poatan in the same night. Yes, on paper, Anthony Smith is incredible. And it does make sense. On paper, Anthony Smith would beat Roman Dolidze. And that's why I'm rolling with Roman Dolidze this week. Anthony Smith, his last time around, who'd he beat in that last fight? It was somebody that it did not make any sense. Vitor Petrino, that's right. We all thought Vitor Petrino was going to finish Anthony Smith, and Anthony Smith locks up that guillotine as he's getting taken down. Kind of catches Vitor Petrino by surprise. I think maybe he took Anthony Smith a little lightly based on how his career has been going as of late. Roman Dolidze dropping 2 losses in a row. I don't think that's going to happen. We've seen some really fun grappling out of Roman Dolidze in the past. The calf slicer against Jack Hermanson, I think, where he did that and then he pounded out. I think it was Jack. I just think being that Anthony Smith should beat Roman Dolidze and he only beats guys he has no business beating now, Roman Dolidze is going to find the win against Anthony Smith. So I'm rolling with Roman. What do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to share that Anthony Smith got his jacket for 50 clean tests.
Wow.
I saw his face here, and I don't know. He just looks older than I remember.
Really? I think he's just as ugly as ever.
Well, okay. I think he looks weathered, man. Not to say that he can't go out there and get it done against Roman Dolidze. I think Roman Dolidze is a guy who sometimes, mess that up. I think Roman Dolidze is a guy who that doesn't fight to his ability, and a lot of times it ends up. What's up, Scotland? I think Roman Dolidze is the guy who goes out there and, because he's, from Georgia, we give him a lot of respect. And he does have some good wins under his belt, Kyle Dawkins, but Kyle Dawkins went on to not be much. At the time, knocked out Phil Hawes, knocked out Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson had a little bit of a revitalization of his career, if you will. United decision loss to Marvin Vettori. United decision loss to Nasser Imavov in a very boring fight there. I think Roman Dolidze is going to go out there and be aggressive towards Anthony Smith. And I think Anthony Smith is going to get hit a lot. And I'm going to be going with Roman Dolidze here. There's no odds on this fight here, but Anthony Smith went out there. I think he's going to be, riding the high of the submission win over Victor Petrino, a guy who took him too lightly. And then you have Roman Dolidze, who I think is, not going to take him lightly, knowing that this opponent is coming off of a win, taking it on short notice. And I think he's going to go out there and be aggressive. I think the Nasruddin Imavov lost 4 months ago where he was very hesitant. I think that's going to weigh on him, and he's going to go out there and want to really do something, especially on, a UFC numbered card here. I think we're going to see the Roman Dolidze who went out there and finished Jack Hermanson. So I'm going to go with Roman Dolidze here. I think Anthony Smith just potentially doesn't have it. And unless he gets overlooked or it's really, really subpar competition, then he's got a really good shot. But listen, you could have a tentative Roman Dolidze and Anthony Smith go out there and, potentially. I also think Roman Dolidze has an underrated ground game. I don't have any immediate examples in front of me, but I just think he has an immediate ground game. Anthony Smith is probably going to be a little bit bigger. Remember, he's taking on short notice. He last fought at 205. This fight is going to be at 205. So he probably only had to, diet down a little bit. Roman Dolidze, 185, was planning for a 185 fight. Now it's a 205, probably a little bit bigger. Maybe that helps his cardio, maybe doesn't. It would be interesting to see. I don't know if we've ever seen Roman Dolidze at 205. Let me go back and take a look at that. Jack Hermanson, Phil Hawes, no. I'm looking at this, and this will be interesting to see what he looks like at 205. He's not a terribly big. He fought John Allen, a split decision, so not a great, I guess, debut here. He's got a knockout here to Carlos Ibrahimov. So Michael Pasternak, light heavyweight. He fought light heavyweight, in a previous life and in previous things here. So he's had some power there. Hasn't really gotten a chance to show it in the UFC. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But I'm still going to be going Roman Dolidze. And just to look at what Tapology's saying, most people are actually on Smith by decision. So that's what I was afraid of.
I was shocked to see that just now. That's crazy. I'm surprised. I think a lot of people are just caught up in Anthony Smith's last win. I feel like that's what's going on. You lock up a guillotine like that. It is very impressive. And I think a lot of, oh my goodness, he's got great submission game. That's Roman Dolidze has the better grappling. That's what it comes down to. So shout out our friends Adam, Joe, and Quops, K-Wops. Quops asked, how would Alex Pereira do in heavyweight? We'll get to that after the main event. We'll chat on that for a sec. This co-main event, we got Brian Ortega, T-City versus Diego Lopes. I'm curious to hear what you got about this one first, Tom. Put your face up.
Ooh. Listen, I think Diego Lopes is an awesome prospect. And I have a little, special place for him in my heart, too, because I feel like we saw him when he made his debut against, I'm blanking. Moisar Evloev. Yeah. On short notice coming into the UFC first fight, go out there and put up a strong decision, even though he lost strong decision performance against Moisar Evloev 16-0, had him in some bad positions. And since then, he's been, rocket fuel, getting a submission over Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini knocking him out, and then Sadiq Youssef knockout there. I like Diego Lopes a lot, man. And Brian Ortega, I don't think he's as good as maybe we may think. I think Yair Rodriguez, the submission win, makes everybody bring Brian Ortega back into the fold. But I'm just not so sure that he's there. You have Yair Rodriguez, or you have the loss to Yair Rodriguez and the win, which was, where Yair got hurt. So I'm not even so sure that I want to bring that up. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm getting that backed up. Yair Rodriguez, he lost because he got hurt, came back and submitted Yair, and that brings Brian Ortega back into the fold. He's got the loss over Volkanovski. He got beat Chan Sung Jung, and then, lost to Max Holloway. I'm actually, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking Brian Ortega might actually give Diego Lopes a lot harder of a competition than maybe we were initially thinking. I want to go Diego Lopes, and I may still, but as I'm thinking about this, Brian Ortega, his competition, beating Yair Rodriguez, we were thinking Yair was going to run over him. And that just simply wasn't the case. Now, maybe it could be Yair overlooking him in that regard and just didn't give his best performance, and potentially that's it. But, Diego Lopes went out there during his press conference and he was talking about how he doesn't think that Brian Ortega does a lot of high-level BJJ, and he's been doing it since he was 5. It's going to be a tough one. We've seen Diego Lopes go out there and have success. Moistar Evloev is a strong grappling game, but obviously it's a very different type of ground game than Brian Ortega is going to present. I think Diego Lopes may have an advantage there, but I'm just not sure of it because we haven't seen him have the competition level to really prove it. So, and I think the standing game absolutely is going to go Diego Lopes. So I'm still going to lean Diego. Because I think he's got a strong ground game. Brian is obviously sneaky and super well adept there. And you don't have to do high-level competition BJJ to be good at it for MMA. So I think that's maybe a miscalculation there by Diego Lopes. I think if he's overlooking Brian Ortega on the ground, I think he's got a real problem on his hands. As long as he takes him incredibly serious on the ground, I think he has everything. He has what it takes to defend a lot of submissions and find himself in positive positions. And I also think he's going to be able to outstrike Brian Ortega on the feet. So I'm going to go Diego Lopes ever so slightly. I think this one's actually going to go to decision. It's going to be a tight decision. This is a great fight, and I can't wait. What do you think, Keith?
All signs point Diego Lopes, which makes me instantly go against Diego Lopes a little bit. It's one of these scenarios where everybody thinks that Diego is going to win. And I think people are really sleeping on Brian Ortega. He looked really good in that last fight against Yair Rodriguez. Was working with a stand-up game, and Yair is incredible. I think Diego Lopes clearly has the striking advantage, like you said. I could see one of two things happening. I could see Brian Ortega finishing Diego Lopes, continuing, to work his way up towards a title shot, or you see Diego Lopes finish Brian Ortega early, take no damage, and end up on that UFC Mexico card at the Apex. I think it's more likely that Brian Ortega beats Diego Lopes. And maybe I'm just hot on Brian Ortega because, he's been around for a while, and I'm looking back at the experience and the amount of fights that he's given us in the past and what he's shown us. I think Brian Ortega is measured. He's very calculated now at this point. We saw that against Yair Rodriguez, intelligently timing takedowns, going to the ground with Yair when it really matters, and just really making use of that jiu-jitsu. Because we all know he's got an incredible guard. He's got some of the best triangle chokes in the game. His guillotine is nasty. His transitions off of his back are insane. It's so beautiful to watch. And it's more so because all signs point Diego that I'm really going with Brian Ortega. I think that he's going to surprise a lot of people. It's a huge step in competition for Diego Lopes. And I think what's going to happen is maybe he knocks Brian Ortega down, follows him to the ground. But we even saw Brian Ortega stun Volk. That's how he got in that third round against Volk, that legendary third round when Volk gets out of 3 submissions. That all started because Brian Ortega dropped Volk and put him in that guillotine. So it's not like Brian Ortega has pillow hands either. I think that Brian Ortega is going to get the W against Diego Lopes this week. The experience, the intelligence versus Diego's inexperience. Not that he's inexperienced like that, but, at this top-tier UFC level, these featherweight guys that have fought for belts multiple times in the past, this is Diego's first time fighting a guy like that. And we do oftentimes see a guy drop the ball in a fight like this. So I'm going to go with Brian Ortega here. The experience is really going to shine through, I think, for Brian Ortega. He comes back from that Max fight where Max is teaching him how to block, and he comes back better against Chang Sung Jung. His striking looked immensely better.
Yeah, but listen, the level of competition there, Korean Zombie. Come on.
No, you can't forget Chang Sung Jung did stun Max Holloway in his final fight a couple of times. That was a back and forth battle. Yeah, I know the Korean Zombie.
Max finished him in, right?
Max did finish him, of course, but he did still put up a good fight with Max. Chang Sung Jung had some of the best hands in the division for a long time. So it's not like Brian Ortega is totally inept on his feet. Diego Lopes is no Max Holloway. And I think Brian Ortega is going to have the better jiu-jitsu. So, and I definitely agree with Joe. Joe says, I think this is the fight of the night. I think so too, because Brian Ortega is a hard man to put away, even against Max in that 5-round fight. It took a stoppage. And the amount of times that they're throwing up the fingers in the face against Volk, are you all right? Are you all right? Brian Ortega is going to keep coming back from whatever Diego Lopes throws at him. I really think that Brian Ortega is going to get a dub, and he's going to get a fat bonus at the end of the night. So I'm gonna go with T-City. I'm going with T-City, bro. And not that it always helps, not that it's always like, a thing that works, but a lot of the times when these guys find God, and Brian Ortega found God after Tracy Cortez dumped him, he found God. He's like donating $100,000 to his church. Sometimes these guys win when they find Christ. I don't know, or like whatever religion they believe in. So maybe Brian Ortega's got the power of God on his side too. We'll see. We'll see, man. But I'm going with T-City.
This is going to be a good fight. This is going to be a really good fight. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I do lean Brian Ortega. But you also just got the young fire of Diego Lopes, who looks so good at so many things. He's got really good low kicks. He's got, the ability to put you away on the feet. He's fast. He's got really good cardio, especially grappling cardio. And he's got the wrestling aspect that Brian doesn't necessarily have, the pure jiu-jitsu. So, he's good at jiu-jitsu, but he's also, have a strong base. This is going to be a good fight, man. I can't freaking wait.
It's going to be sick. Our new friend, Joshi Pama, says, oh, wahoo! I read that in the Mario voice instantly, bro. I know
you said it in the Mario voice.
Yeah, I know. That's how I instantly read it when it came across my screen. Wahoo! All right, well, yeah, wahoo indeed, because we got the main event, Alex Pereira versus Jiri, the Last Samurai, Procházka.
How would Alex do in heavyweight? Real quick. Probably solid.
Yeah,
probably solid. He gets hit by guys who are fast, and guys in the heavyweight division traditionally aren't too fast. So I think he'd be able to get out of the way. He does have, not the best head movement. But again, I think he'd be able to get out of the way enough. Kickboxing is his specialty. I think he would have a real challenge against grappling type guys. If Tom Aspinall wanted to take him down, if Curtis Blades, fought against Curtis Blades, I think that would present the biggest challenge. But against a lot of the heavyweight division that just stands there, I mean, I think Potan would have a ton of success. Would he be able to win the belt? It depends on who's the champion. And that's really what it boils down to. What do you think, Keith?
Facts, right there with you. We've seen him, against grapplers, we've seen him be able to like butt scoot his way back to the fence, stand up over time, work his way back up. Guys at heavyweight are heavier. A guy like Curtis Blades and a guy like Tom Aspinall are probably better grapplers than Alex Pereira's ever faced. So you do have Murderer's Row at heavyweight right now. It's like developing a little bit. They're starting to get the star power up there towards that top upper echelon. So I think it would be tough for Alex Pereira. And I think more guys would be willing to take him down. But I think his dance partner this week is not going to shoot for a takedown until maybe late in this fight. I got a weird feeling about this one. I love Alex Pereira. Everyone that follows me knows that I love Alex Pereira. He's one of my favorite guys. I will just be walking around the hallways at work like Shama. Just making Alex Pereira noises everywhere I go. And now it's cool to see him speaking English and everything. But I have a really weird feeling about this one. We're already starting to hear things like almost quasi-excuses. The broken toes and whatnot. This reminds me of Volk taking the fight against Islam to some degree, where it's like, step in. Maybe you're not fully healthy, but step in and we'll promise you a big fat payday. And Jiri Prochazka is not a guy that you want to step in against if you're not fully in this fight, whether it be mentally or physically. Now, Jiri Prochazka has been saying that Alex Pereira has shamans and witchcraft that's going to help him get ready for this fight and be fully healthy for it. I don't know if that's the case. I think it would be pretty sick if Alex Pereira was seeing shamans before he fought. But whether or not he's seeing shamans, I still think that Jiri Prochazka is going to find a way to get the W this week. And I'm like not 100% on this. It's just a gut feeling more than anything because, excuse me, we saw Jiri shake off the rust against Alexander Rakic big time. Like that, he got touched up a little bit early in that fight. The leg kicks hurt him. Those leg kicks against Poatan are going to hurt him. But I think he shook off all that ring rust from being out for so long. He's taking this one pretty relatively soon after that. He's still in good shape. And it's, I don't know, it's more gut feeling than anything. I'm going with Jiri Prochazka this week. I think he's going to find a way to beat Alex Pereira. And I think he's going to submit him, actually. I think he's going to submit him late. I think it's going to be a similar scenario to the Glover fight. As long as Jiri doesn't, he's going to be dumb. He's going to make dumb mistakes. He's going to get touched on the chin. As long as they don't stop the fight early, like the last time, like you could justify that stoppage. But I think whoever's reffing this one has to just let it go. They got to let it play its course until there's a legitimate finish, because you could see like a fight of the century between the two of these guys. It's just the right events have to take place, right? Like you got to have the right ref in there. Both guys got to come in, feeling good. And I think Jiri Prochazka against a semi-healthy Alex Pereira is, he has a better shot against him than a fully healthy Pereira. And I don't know. It's gut feeling more than anything. I'm sorry if you hate my logic behind this one. Let me know in the comments how much you hate it. But I just have a gut feeling that Jiri Prochazka is going to find a way to beat Alex Pereira this week. And a lot of the times, let us know what you think. A lot of the times, my gut feeling, I'm losing my gut, but it still works, bro. It still lets me know. And I think Jiri Prochazka is going to pull out a W. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think with your less gut, it has potentially less ability to predict the fight correctly. But I don't know. That remains to be seen. Listen, Alex Pereira has potentially or allegedly a couple broken toes. He was on a media tour, and he's taking this on about 2 months notice against Jiri Prochazka, who now is going to be a lot healthier than when he fought him last time. You got to remember, he had he went over Glover Teixeira, had to forfeit the belt, and he was out for 13 months. It was allegedly the worst shoulder injury in UFC history. Comes back and loses to Alex Pereira. And then you have Alexander Rakic. He's coming back, 5 months after that, getting the win, looking really good doing it. I think this is obviously a much different matchup than the first time around. And I would be a lot more concerned for Alex Pereira, and in fact, I am. But I think that Jiri Prochazka has a crazy fighting style, and maybe if he was a little bit more traditional, maybe if I would have trusted him to watch film and tape and maybe analyze a little bit better. Not to say that he didn't, but it just with his overall aura, I expect him to just be in the woods punching trees, and that's his training style. I wouldn't necessarily think he'd be the kind to methodically sit down and try to analyze his opponent to try to find a weakness or an opening and go and exploit that game plan. I think he's going to go out there and he's going to feel it, just in the same way when he goes to his press conference, he just goes out there and, asks Alex Pereira to stop using witch voodoo magic to help him, in the fights. So I think Jiri Prochazka is not your typical guy. He's not going to fight this like a typical guy, and I don't think he's going to do prep work like maybe a typical fighter would, in which, Israel Adesanya was the one who did and found the opening and knew what was going to happen and baited Alex Pereira into something. I'm not so sure that Jiri Prochazka is the baiting type, is the strategizing type. I think Jiri is going to go out there and just fight from the feel. I do think Alex, could fight through a toe injury potentially. He could, go in there on short notice and beat him, because Jiri Prochazka leaves himself open a lot. With that flowy style comes an opportunity where his hands leave his chin. Again, is he a guy who's going to have watched tape enough to keep his hands up or change his style? Probably not. So, like you said, it could be a fight of the century. It's going to be something that I cannot wait to see. And yeah, the co-main could be the fight of the night, but so could this. And there's a couple options potentially on the prelims and all elsewhere on the main card. I mean, Ian Garry and MVP is going to be a really interesting fight. And nothing may happen, but it could also be a really good fight just because of the implication too. It's not, not that anything's going to happen, but it's the implication. You know what I mean, Keith?
Right.
But
taking a boat out. Yeah, no.
It is. That being said, I think the UFC did a really great job of, picking up Conor McGregor's mess and putting a really interesting card together. I'm going with Pereira to get it done.
Hell yeah. All right. We split there too. So we got a couple of splits on this card. Let's run through it one more time, put a bow on this thing, and do our pick rundown.
Here we go.
All right, starting at the bottom, I got Ricky Simone over Vinicius Oliveira. I got Peyton Talbot over Yanis Gamori, obvious. Charles Rodin over Jean Silva. Cubby Swanson over Andre Feely. And I'm going Marc-Andre Barriault over Joe Pfeiffer. I got Michael Venom Page over Ian Machado Garry. Mayra Bueno Silva over Macy Chiasson. Roman Dolidze beating Anthony Smith. Going with Brian T-City Ortega over Diego Lopes and Jiri Prochazka over Alex Pereira. This is the card of the underdogs. What do you got?
Yeah, it sounds really bad when I'm going to be picking all favorites for the most part. I'm going Ricky Simone over Vinicius over Oliveira, Boudet over Arlovsky. I'm going to go Talbot over Giannis and Jordan over Silva. Also going Philly over Cub Swanson, who is 40-ish years old. Joe Pfeiffer, I think, is going to come back and get it done over Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going to take MVP over Ian Machado Garry. I'm taking MBS over Macy Chiasson. Surprisingly interesting fight potential there. Roman Dolidze, I think, over Anthony Smith. Diego Lopes over Ortega and Pereira over Procházka. Nothing too surprising or interesting for me in terms of picks this week.
Yeah, I try to keep it exciting. Just want to say thank you, all you kind people at home. Really appreciate your comments from our friends out there. Adam, Joshy Pama, Joe, Quops. Really appreciate you guys. If you haven't, like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_pickinwinners. At pickinkeith on Twitter for me. At pickinfightstom on X for Tom. Both on X. I don't know why I keep saying Twitter. I got to break that habit. Tough to do. Spotify as well. Audio, video over there. And in the words of Joshy Pama, wahoo!
Oh, man, I definitely messed that up.
Okay. In the words of Joshy Pama, wahoo!